yet again another site of another attack on the Jewish community in the UK.
Yes, indeed, Jane, and the words really are yet again, because this is a community which consistently feels that it's looking over its shoulder. It's just a few weeks ago that I was here reporting on an arson attack on 4 ambulances run by the Jewish community. And where I am right now, if I just step aside, at this scene here, within the last couple of hours, a man was apprehended by police officers on suspicion of stabbing 2 people in the Jewish community. Now, it all started to unfold late morning. We understand that 2 men were stabbed, one in their 70s and one in their 30s. A member of the local community that I was in touch with, who first alerted me to the fact that something was going on here on the ground, when I said to them, look, do you believe that this is potentially some kind of anti-Semitic incident? I said, were those 2 men visibly part of the Jewish community? To which the person I was talking to told me, yes, they were. So people here very alarmed, horrified that something else has happened. At this arrest location, we understand there were also attempts by the man involved who was detained to attack members of the police force as well. We understand that police officers used a taser to apprehend him. But by that point, members of the Jewish organisation known as Shomrim, which is essentially a volunteer security organisation, we think that they were involved in the apprehension of the suspect. And it just also tells its own story, the fact that you have volunteer Jewish organisations involved in security along with the CST organisation as well. That's the level of fear and concern amongst the community these days, particularly post the October the 7th attacks of, in October 3 years ago. There have been this increasing number of anti-Semitic incidents. Now, we don't know for fact that it was an anti-Semitic incident. That's the theory that's being investigated right now. It's certainly what the Jewish community believe to be the case. We understand as well that there are counter-terror officers who are also investigating whether this will be classified as a terrorist incident. But what I can tell you is that this is very much an ongoing crime scene. In fact, given that there are 2 stabbing locations, there are a huge number of cordons all around this area. It's very, very difficult to navigate. We're right on the edge of the very busy North Circular in this area of Golders Green as well. But just to give you that sense of the community feeling like they're looking over their shoulders, there have been a number of other incidents over recent weeks, attempted arson attacks at synagogues, and against this backdrop of rising anti-Semitism within the community as well.
And Lisa, not just over the last month or so that we've seen these attacks, you know, thinking back to what happened last October at the Heaton Park, the synagogue attack there as well.
Yeah, of course, and also, of course, global anti-Semitic incidents. Of course, the stabbing at the attacks at Bondi Beach in Australia a few months ago, coinciding with Hanukkah, the Jewish festival of Hanukkah as well. And as you say, Jane, the incident at the Heaton Park Mosque in Greater Manchester, and of course the attacks on the ambulances here just in March recently, when they were 4 ambulances run by the volunteer community set on fire by arsonists there too. And also just this sense from people that if a special event in the Jewish calendar comes along, that they are feeling like they are particularly living on their nerves, on their guard, looking over their shoulder. And you set that against the backdrop too of calls from within the Jewish community saying, look, more needs to be being done on a political level, more needs to be done in terms of engagement from Downing Street and beyond, and between communities as well, to try to sort of bring an end to this, and also to make people feel safer within their own community.
And also, Lisa, we've spoken to various members of the Jewish community this afternoon who've talked about their concerns with their children, people being concerned about sending children to school in uniforms that are for specifically Jewish schools, people feeling concerned when they drop their children off for Hebrew lessons.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk to people within the Jewish community, they will say there is no other community in Britain who who looks over their shoulder to this degree, who organise security, who live their lives behind gates. Now, if you go to Jewish schools, if you go to synagogues, if you go to other Jewish venues, it's all gated, and people are very, very nervous about even identifying locations. I mean, I've been filming at locations around the country where people are very, very nervous about even showing where they're based, and the fear of living under the threat of attack. Just right here now, a couple of the police cars leaving from this location. It's, as I was saying to you before, Jane, it is still very much an ongoing active police investigation scene, an active crime scene. But to this point, yes, that people going about their business fearful of wearing clothing which will identify them as part of the Jewish community, fearful of children. One person I was talking to about what they call kind of everyday antisemitism, saying, you know, if you regularly go on a tube at a particular time of day with school children who are attending a particular school, that they will be subjected to comments and all kinds of abuse. So really not only fear within the Jewish community, but also a real growing sense of frustration, I think, as well, that they feel that what's happening to them is not being taken seriously enough politically, and that there is just not enough engagement on this issue.
And Lisa, also a sentiment from some we've spoken to this afternoon that the solution seems to be seen by others as more money for security, higher walls, the ghettoisation of the Jewish community, which is not what this community wants. They don't want to live in fear.
They don't want to live in fear, but what they would say is that this way of life, this way of living behind walls, is something that they've got very used to. It's not something which has happened, you know, for example, over the last few weeks since the arson attack on the ambulances here in Golders Green in northwest London. It's something which has been growing and growing and growing, that they would say. It was the case even before the October the 7th attacks in Israel, and it was the case really on a sort of mounting scale. I mean, looking at some of the data over recent years, the data for the year before last showed the highest ever levels, barring the year of the October the 7th attacks, for anti-Semitic incidents. And yes, you have eye-catching incidents, such as we've seen in Golders Green, in terms of the attacks on the ambulances, attacks against synagogues and the like, attempted arson attacks. But talking to people in the Jewish community, it's not just about that. It's about almost that sort of sense of everyday anti-Semitism, as they would call it. I've spoken to people who say that they get called baby killer in the streets, that they face all sorts of questioning. People who almost have to give an explanation of what kind of a Jew they are. I've been been reporting in the south of southern England, in Brighton, where people say they feel intimidated by others who've gone door to door asking people not to sell, for example, Israeli produce. That there is almost, as one person described it to me, as a kind of a Jew test, if you like. People asked to almost like explain where they stand with regard to the international political climate, and that's not something that they feel comfortable with. They are British Jews living in this country, and they really don't want to be seen to be people who have to answer for the political decisions, for example, of the Israeli government.